I found this free broken bed frame listed on Facebook Marketplace, and it was made of solid acacia wood, so I was interested. I ended up making 3 coffee tables out of it. This video is about the first of those builds. The previous owner was just going to take it to the dump, but lucky for me, his wife convinced him to see if anyone wanted it first. And I definitely did, since it was a gorgeous hardwood, and even the bed slats were acacia. I decided to start by making a waterfall table out of this headboard that already had nice bow ties and an unfilled river. It wasn't until summer that I got started, so I decided to work mostly outside. First, I removed the old braces. In a waterfall build, the legs provide plenty of stiffness to hold it flat. It seemed like it should be a relatively easy build, but I'm usually jinxing myself when I think that. Even just cutting the legs off proved more difficult than I expected. But eventually, they came off. Then I used an electric hand planer to flatten it, bring it down to the desired thickness, and get rid of all the old finish. On the bottom I had to use the belt sander, since there were several screws that I had cut through when taking the legs off, and I decided to leave them in because they'll be hardly visible in the end, and I think they add a bit of character. But let me know if you think I should have drilled them out and refilled the holes instead. Woodworkers like to joke that what we make the most is sawdust, and it's only funny because it's true. Then I brought it inside and hand sanded all of the finish away from inside the river. Then I taped up any cracks or holes or knots in preparation for epoxy. When I use tuck tape like this, I do a very shallow initial pour, because I've found that if you do the whole pour at once, you're much more likely to get a leak. After the first pour, I realized that bringing the board inside to a different temperature and humidity had caused cupping overnight. So I added clamping pressure to hold it flat to the work table, hoping this would help. In the end, I only got it close to perfect when doing the waterfall glue up. But I think this helped. After several pours to fill the river and all the major voids or cracks, I brought it back outside and started sanding all the resin flat. Then I cut both ends off at a 45-degree angle, and cut the opposite 45-degree angle into the end pieces, and cut slots for more biscuits than was probably necessary. But the biscuits were going to be key for getting it flat and perfectly aligned in the glue up, so I erred on the side of overkill. And I erred on the side of overkill with clamping pressure during the glue up from every possible direction and placement as well. As you'll see in most of my builds, I tend to err on the side of overkill. And so in this spirit, I decided to create bracing for the legs, even though the glue up would probably be strong enough by itself. First I cut slots into both the tabletop and the legs using the biscuit jointer. Then I made a mold that I could pour epoxy into. The epoxy becomes a rectangular brace and fills those slots that I cut for added grip and strength. This would be a bad idea with most types of wood, as it wouldn't allow for seasonal wood movement. But acacia is harder and denser than most domestic woods like maple or oak, and is known for having little to no seasonal wood movement. Then I cleaned up all the small knots, holes, cracks, and filled them with CA glue. And sanded everything to 220 grit. Then I gave a slight round over to all of the edges. And it was finally time to add my brand. For finishing, I like to start by applying a layer of epoxy. After letting it soak in for a minute, I buff all of the epoxy off of the surface, because I don't like that shiny, plasticky look and feel. Then once it's cured, I give it a light sand with 220 grit. and then apply a couple of layers of polyurethane. It's not the cheapest or easiest way of doing finish, but I think it's worth it for the look and the durability. What do you think? And the last step was adding adjustable feet to the legs, which needed a bit of modifying to fit. And with that, the waterfall table was done. Subscribe if you want to see the other 2 coffee tables I'm making from the same broken bed.